So, who gets to decide what's a secret? And maybe even more important, who decides when breaking that secret is the right thing to do? This isn't a new question, not by a long shot. It's this constant battle, really, between keeping the country safe and making sure we, the public, know what's being done in our name. You've got national security on one side and the public's right to know on the other. It's a huge clash. So, let's dive into it. Okay, so on one side of this big tug of war, you've got this really stark warning from a Supreme Court Justice, Robert Jackson. And his point was basically this: if we're not careful, if we have total freedom with no limits, we could literally destroy ourselves. The idea is that some secrets are just so dangerous that leaking them is like handing a loaded gun to our enemies. You'd be using the Bill of Rights, the very thing that protects our freedom, to cause our own downfall. He called it a suicide pact. And yeah, this slide just lays it out perfectly, right? You've got Justice Jackson's suicide pact warning on one side, but then, on the other, you have the actual reason the Bill of Rights was created in the first place, to stop the government from abusing its power. And the press? Well, they see themselves as the tool to make sure that happens. So it boils down to this really tough question. What's the bigger danger? The secret itself, or the person who exposes it? All right, let's get real for a second. What are the dangers the government is so worried about? We're not just talking about theories here. The stakes can be incredibly, incredibly high. Well, officials usually break it down into three big areas of potential damage. First, you've got intelligence. A leak can reveal how we get our info, and even worse, who is giving it to us. And just like that, a priceless source is gone forever. Second, it can totally blow up sensitive diplomatic talks. And third, and this is the most serious one, leaks can get people killed. It's as simple as that. Let's look at a really chilling case that makes this whole thing feel very real. We're going back to June 14th, 1985. Hezbollah terrorists hijacked TWA Flight 847. It was this brutal, drawn-out ordeal. And during this hijacking, the terrorists tortured and then murdered a U.S. Navy diver named Robert Stetham. And their reason for it? Get this. They pointed directly to a Washington Post article that had come out just a month before. It had leaked a secret CIA operation. So for the hijackers, that story was all the justification they needed. Think about that. A direct line from a newspaper article to a man's death. And look, this isn't just the government saying this stuff. Even Katharine Graham, the legendary head of the Washington Post, admitted something similar about a different, absolutely devastating leak. She said that a story that revealed an intelligence source was published right before the 1983 Beirut barracks bombing. That attack killed 241 American service members. So the government's case, when you boil it down, is pretty simple. Some secrets, if they get out, have deadly, deadly consequences. Okay, so if the risks are that high, why on earth would the press ever publish this kind of stuff? Well, for journalists, it comes down to a duty that they believe is just as important for the country's survival. You see, journalists often talk about being the fourth estate, this unofficial watchdog, keeping the government in check. Their whole argument is built on a few core ideas. One, that democracy just doesn't work if the public is in the dark. Two, that it's their job to expose when the government does something wrong, wastes money, or breaks the law. And three, that they're basically the best defense we have against a president or an agency getting too powerful. And you know what? Here's maybe the best argument for their side. And it comes from a president, John F. Kennedy. After the Bay of Pigs invasion, which was a complete disaster, he apparently told an editor at the New York Times something incredible. The paper had actually held back some details before the invasion because the government asked them to. And JFK said to the editor, "Maybe if you had printed more, you would have saved us from a colossal mistake." So there you have it. Secrecy can lead to disaster too. Which, of course, brings us to probably the most famous leak ever, the Pentagon Papers. And here's Katharine Graham again, but this time she's explaining why she decided to publish them. She said that the secret history of the Vietnam War was exactly the kind of stuff the public needed to know to make smart decisions. So for the press, the main idea is this: an uninformed public, that's a national security risk all on its own. So we've got two really powerful arguments, right? Both sides make some great points, but the reality? Oh, the reality is so much messier. This isn't some clean fight between good guys and bad guys. It's a tangled web of different motives and really blurry lines. The press will tell you that, look, not all secrets are the same. They point to this huge problem called overclassification. That's when the government slaps a secret stamp on something, not to protect national security, but to cover up a mistake, avoid embarrassment, or just shut down an argument they don't want to have. And this quote just perfectly captures how absurd it can get. The guy whose actual job it was to oversee the whole secrecy system said he saw things stamped classified that he'd also seen in third-grade textbooks. I mean, come on. When that's happening, it's pretty hard for the government to argue that every single leak is some catastrophic threat to the nation. And this messiness is totally reflected in what the public thinks. You look at this data from Pew Research about the big WikiLeaks disclosures, and people are all over the place. For the Afghan war documents, it was almost a perfect split. 47% said harmful, 42% said it served the public interest. So there's no easy answer here, not for the government and not for the press. And to make it even more complicated, you've got the government's own hypocrisy. Publicly, they're all about condemning leaks, but behind the scenes, officials are constantly doing what's called selective leaking. They strategically give secrets to reporters to help their own careers, to attack a rival in another agency, or to drum up support for a policy they want.
A classic case of this was the stealth bomber leak back in 1980. Some defense officials leaked details about this super-secret program, conveniently right before an election. The Carter administration then confirmed it, which made them look tough on defense. Later, a report from Congress found the leak did serious damage and was basically just a political stunt. The point is, neither side is pure as the driven snow here. High-minded principals often get tangled up with plain old self-interest.
So you've got both sides playing in this murky gray area. Part high principle, part dirty politics. Is there any path forward, any way to fix this? Well, the analysis we're looking at is pretty clear on one thing. Whatever we're doing right now, it's not working. For decades, the government's go-to move has been threatening to throw journalists and their sources in jail. But you know what? It just doesn't work. Report after report has shown it's an ineffectual system. It hasn't stopped the leaks at all. So what's the alternative? This quote from Michael Hayden is pretty wild when you think about who he is. The guy used to run both the CIA and the NSA. He suggests a totally different approach. He says instead of fighting all the time, intelligence officials should actually build relationships with the media. Talk to them when things are calm, not just when a crisis hits. His whole idea is that the answer isn't more threats, it's more communication, more understanding. And that leaves us right back where we started, with that fundamental question. The press is supposed to be the check on a powerful government, right? But what happens when the press itself becomes incredibly powerful? When the watchers become a force to be reckoned with, who watches them? And that really is one of the biggest, most important, and still unanswered questions we face.